All right, traveling, right? Traveling is why we're here. We're going to watch some traveling videos. As I said earlier, I'm going to focus on a few specific traveling cases. I've got lots and lots of video. If there's something you want to see that I don't show, by all means, ask. If I have it, I'll show it. If I don't, obviously I won't. But we can cover as much stuff as you want to cover. We can even go outside of traveling. If you get tired of traveling after 30, 40 minutes, you want to do something else, we can do something else. I'm fine, as long as I can find it on short notice. All right, so let's go. I'm going to go right ahead. We're going to start with the jump stop. Everyone understands what a jump stop is, correct? All right, so I'm going to play it fast again real quick. He does a jump stop and passes the ball. Did he do it correctly, legal, or traveling? Here it is slow. What do you all think?
That's legal.
Legal.
Looks legal.
Legal?
It's legal.
Legal. It is legal. Why is it legal? Because he's a dribbling player. A dribbling or moving player is allowed to jump off of 1 foot, right? Once he's holding the ball, now he's holding the ball. So now the restrictions have ended, or he's no longer considered moving. He has stopped and established a pivoting foot. But because he was dribbling and he has 1 foot on the floor, he can jump off that foot, which he does. What can he do now that he's in the air?
Pass or shoot.
Besides pass or shoot, he can obviously pass or shoot.
Land with both feet simultaneously.
He can only do one thing: land with both feet simultaneously. And that kid's pretty good. That was relatively
He did.
That was relatively simultaneous. I usually give a little bit of allowance to kids because sometimes it's not the easiest to do. The more athletic you are, the easier it is. But if it's relatively close, I'm going to let it go. Now that he's down on 2 feet, now what can he do?
Shoot or pass.
He can still pass or shoot. What else?
Jump.
He can jump. Absolutely. What else? Can he lift 1 foot off the floor?
Yes.
Yes. He can lift 1 or both feet off the floor. He just can't come back down to the floor, right? If he comes back down to the floor with either 1 or 2 feet, then it's a traveling violation. Can he start a dribble?
No.
No.
Why not?
He already picked it up.
Illegal dribble.
Because once your pivot is gone, right, you can't dribble. Your pivot is lifted up. That means your pivot is now gone. So since he's down on the floor with no pivot, he can't dribble.
He was dribbling the ball already anyway.
Well, that's right. He's already lost it. All right, here's from a state game years ago. Okay, now they called it travel here. But what happened? What did he do? He went from, I'm going to pause it. That's his pivot foot. Do we agree?
In the Super Bowl.
His left foot, he picks up the ball, and his left foot is on the ground, so that's his pivot foot. And then what does he do?
What I saw this time.
He goes to his non-pivot foot. So what do you got? Do you agree with the official, or is it legal? Legal or traveling?
Legal.
I'll play it again. I'm sorry, legal or not legal?
Legal.
That's legal.
Do you have full possession?
Now, I put this one in here on purpose because you would say, yes, he can go off his pivot foot on his non-pivot foot, correct?
Not if he goes into another dribble, though. And was that a loose ball, or did he go to dribble?
I think the ball got knocked loose, but let's take that out of it. The rule is actually very clear. Unfortunately, they don't define what a jump is, but they do define what a pivot is. And a pivot is when you step with 1 foot and the other foot stays in contact with the floor. It is stepping. So a step is when their 1 foot is always on the floor, you're stepping. As soon as both feet come off the floor, what is that? It's a jump.
Jump.
So how do you determine whether he jumped or stepped? If both feet are on the floor, he jumped. Now, the rules say if you jump off of any foot, you cannot come down with either foot. So this was a travel because he jumped. Now, if he had pivoted over that player, would have been legal. Do we understand that? Two feet in the air. Now he comes down, jumps. It's close, but he jumps over the player. Anyone disagree?
Everybody again.
Someone's.
What was that? You want me to play it again?
No, I want you to mute everybody again.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Radio needs to knock it off.
It wasn't easy, but let the
All right, hold on.
games begin. I don't like those Chris Collinsworth.
All right. Yeah, if you need me to mute people, just let me know because I'm not great at that. All right, next one. We're good with that, or you guys want to talk about it more? Seems like everyone was okay with that.
I'm just curious as into further application of that. So you've got somebody who's driving to the basket. They've set their pivot foot, but they have to go over someone who was on the floor. So they do a little jump, land on the other foot, which normally would be a normal part of the shooting motion. But because it's a jump, it's now a travel?
Correct. So if you are dribbling and you jump off your foot, that's different, right? Because you're dribbling. You are a moving player. You're dribbling. And therefore, you have a little allowance as to how your feet are touching the floor. But he was holding the ball. He picked the ball up, and he is now considered to be stopped. All right? And if you are stopped, you are not moving or dribbling. If you jump off that foot, it's not your normal layup to the basket. Does that help?
So now we're entering into the word that he stopped. So he's not in motion toward a shot or something.
Let me get my rule book. Did you guys get your rule books? I got mine early this year.
Yeah, it came last week.
All right. I'll just read it real quick. What is it? Rule 4, Section 44, right? And I'm just going to do it real quick. I'm not going to bore you, but it says a player who catches the ball with both feet. This is how you establish a pivot foot. Player who catches the ball, all right? And then it says, after coming to a stop, Article 3, after coming to a stop and establishing a pivot foot. Well, how do you determine when you came to a stop? It doesn't say this is what constitutes as being stopped. But everything revolves around holding the ball. So if you're dribbling or moving, if you're moving holding the ball, you're a moving player, okay. But once your pivot foot or a foot comes down to the floor and you are holding the ball, you are no longer considered a moving or dribbling player. Does everyone follow that? Because if I'm holding the ball and one of my feet are touching the floor, I can either pivot or follow, along the limitations of the rule, but I can either pivot, shoot, or pass. I can't start dribbling again, right? Now, if I didn't dribble, I could start dribbling, but I'm considered a non-moving player with one foot, at least one foot on the floor and holding the ball. All right.
So I could take a step and not put my pivot foot back down, but I can't take a hop.
You can step. If your pivot foot is on the floor, you can step, step, step with your non-pivot foot. You can then even step and pick your pivot foot up because your non-pivot foot is in contact with the floor. So that is considered a step. But if you jump off that foot, and I know we're mincing words here and it's little, but that's what the rule says. If you jump off that foot, now all the rules are different and you cannot land on the other foot.
Whew. That's a fun explanation.
Just say, Coach, he traveled and move on.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's where it's fun. I got another one that's kind of fun. I'm going to pull this up again. I shared this on Facebook. For those of you who are Facebook, on the Facebook group, for those of you in Facebook, you've seen this already. I shared it the other day. Here it comes. Okay, now there was no call on the play. I'm going to play it fast again and then watch it slow. And tell me, what does he do?
He hopped on the same foot, pivot foot. There it is.
So he had hopped on the other foot. I would have probably said Okay, we'll allow it because he was dribbling the ball and then he picked up the ball with 1 foot on the floor. So, all right, maybe I can give an allowance as to what you can do. But technically, when he picks up the ball and he's touching the floor, if he jumps off that foot, even if he landed on his other foot, by rule, that would have been traveling.
Traveling.
He jumped off that foot. Now, again, realistically speaking, if he's dribbling, gathers the ball, holds it, and jumps off that foot onto the other foot, probably going to let it go because, one, it's going so fast, it's going to be hard to know. And two, I think it was Ken who was saying, that's kind of the normal, usual layup motion, right? So as long as it moves along with the normal, usual motion, I'm going to be more prone to not catch it or to allow it to go. Yeah?
We have to mute people again, Josh.
On it. All right. So for those of you, by the way, if you want to, on your desktop, if you want to unmute quickly, just hold your space bar down, and then when you let it go, it mutes back again. For those that don't know that. The mobile devices, I'm not sure how it works, but...
Hey, Josh,
right.
it would have been all right if he came down on both feet. Then it would have been a jump stop.
That is correct. So if he jumps off that foot, which he is allowed to do because he was a player in motion, and he gathered the ball, he established his pivot foot with 1 foot on the floor. So he's allowed to jump off that foot, but the rules are very clear. He can then land on both feet simultaneously. It doesn't say you can land on one or the other. Just land on 1 foot. It says both simultaneously. Now, is there a loophole there? Did they mean for that not to be that way? I don't know. All I know is the rule says if you're in motion and you establish the foot with 1 foot on the floor, you can jump off that foot and land on both simultaneously. That's a jump stop. That's legal. You can't hop off one and land on the same one. You can't hop off one and land on the other one. By rule, that's illegal.
And also, once you land, you can't pivot, correct?
Correct. So if you do a jump stop, let's see if I can find another one here. That will explain it. If you do a legal jump stop, you are now no longer to have a pivot foot, as in here. He jumps off, he's moving, he gathers the ball with 1 foot on the ground, he lands simultaneously. This is all legal. He's perfect at this point. That is a great jump stop. But then he pivots. And that's illegal because he took too many steps. The more steps we allow, the easier it is for a player to be able to gain their footing and shoot the ball. And the rules are saying, look, you can only take so many, and if you can't do it in that allowed amount of time, then you don't get any more. Right? That's a oversimplification probably, but that's the spirit of the rule. All right? Another jump stop, or you want to move on? Why don't we move on? All right. Let's go to spin moves because this is one we get wrong all the time. All of us. We get it right sometimes, but I think we get it wrong more often than we get it right, and that is the spin move. Let's start with this one. Okay, now we had a foul on this call, a foul. Did he travel? I know I just played it fast, and I'll play it slow in a second, but did he travel, or
Yes.
did he, was it legal?
Yes, he traveled.
Travel.
Now,
That's
to
the
me, it going so fast, watching it real time, boy, that looks pretty like that's a good movie. I don't see anything wrong with that. But if you know what the pivot foot is, you will see clearly he actually traveled twice. Well, let's break this down.
He actually picked up the pivot foot, which
Yes.
was the left foot initially.
Yes, but I looked at this earlier because I want to make sure I give you guys good stuff. When do the restrictions begin? When he's holding the ball. Now, his dribble is ended. His dribble is ended here, but is he holding the ball? I don't know. You could make an argument that he's not holding it yet. He's still gathering it. So because he hops off initially that foot, he's still not holding the ball. So now that he's holding the ball with 2 hands here, and his foot's down, I'm going to allow him that movement, right? Unless you are absolutely 100% sure he's holding the ball when he does that little hop, then yeah, it's a travel. But if you're not sure, if it's really fast, give them the allowance of that movement. I'm okay with that. So he establishes his pivot foot, and then what does he do? He pivots with a step,
Drop the other one.
right? And we're allowed, is this legal?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are allowed to pick up your pivot foot. Yes?
Yes.
When does the violation happen?
When it touches the ground again.
When it returns to the floor, which it does there.
There's a travel.
He has now gained an advantage by being able to completely reposition his body to square up to the basket to take a shot. And he was awarded with a foul. That shouldn't be a shooting foul. That is a travel. Now, to the official who called it, we've all done it. Those are missed all the time. So it's not a shame on you. It's we got to get better at this. As a group of officials, we got to get better at this. I'm going to show you another one. This one also, there's no call on this one. Was it legal or not legal? Most of these spin moves that these players do, at least at the high school level, are illegal. Most of them. Because they start on their back foot when they hold the ball and then they pivot over and they step back. Yes. I thought someone had a question. Everyone saw that one, right? If you if you start watching these, just watch clips of spin moves, or when you see a spin move in a game, a college game, high school game, pay attention to the pivot foot. If you start paying attention to the pivot foot when they're holding the ball, you're going to be better at getting this. And you might get yelled at by a coach saying it was a good move or whatnot, but you'll know, no, it was not. That one was a little more obvious. Do we agree? He totally just, kind of did a spin.
Tell Curtin to call that travel. He was there.
Hey, he's respecting his partner. All right.
There's no debate when he had possession of that ball too. I mean, he obviously possessed it. Then he walked.
And he walked and he spun and he's pivoted twice illegally, I think. Well, maybe because he has extra long legs, it looks worse. But that one looked a little more obvious. Yes?
Yes.
Yep.
That looks like a regular, normal spin move, right? He spun around, went up. But what did he do?
Travel.
Holding the ball. Almost every time. It's a travel. Almost every time. So we need to be aware of that. I'm going to give you one more. This one was called. The official got this one. And is it any different than any of the others? It's absolutely no different. It's the exact same move. So why does one official get it and the rest don't get it? Because we're not paying attention. I'm just as much as fault. I'm not here preaching. I get them wrong. They happen. They're so good. They make a nice, fast spin move. It's hard to see. So if we see a spin move coming, we got to be aware of it.
Josh, do you think maybe part of the problem is reffing philosophy? I mean, some people ref from the feet up, right? But some people just aren't paying attention down there.
Yes, and I also think part of philosophy is maybe, I don't know, I'm making an assumption here now. I played the game. That's a great move. Everybody does it. I'm going to allow it. But we, as officials, when you come from a player into an officiating standpoint, you have to think differently. You can't allow things because you did it as a player, because everybody does it as a player. If it's legal, allow it. If it's not, call it. That's why, I don't remember, 5-6 years ago when the hand checks, remember they kicked in the hand checks real hard, college and high school, because we kept allowing it, and then it got out of control.
Speaking of officiating philosophy, a couple of the clips ago, it was right underneath the basket. And I heard this for the first time within the last couple of weeks, that on that, the lead should be looking for contact and the trail should be helping with the feet. Is that familiar to you, or was that just somebody going off?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this the best I can, because there's a lot of philosophies out there that are wrong.
Agreed.
They're not good philosophies, but it is morphed over time into you watch this, I'll watch that. I'm going to first say, if you are the lead, you are responsible from feet to head of any player in your primary coverage area. It is your area. You are responsible for it. Does that mean the trail can't help? No, absolutely not. Yes, the trail can look, but I am not going to relinquish the lead from watching the feet of the player because he has to watch the body. Then you're too close to the play and you need to move into a better position. And some courts is easier said than done, but we need to get into a position where we can see the player from head to toe. And to be honest, when I officiate toes up, because where does a lot of the illegal activity happen? It starts with the footwork. If you know where the pivot foot is, you know, one, did they pivot legally? Did they travel? You also know, was the defender in a legal guarding position? Was his feet there first? It all starts with the feet. So if we start with the feet and move up, and yes, you can't do it over the course of a couple seconds. You got to do it like that. But you have to be aware of the whole player. So I think where the philosophy came from, to answer your question, is the trail can come and help with that. The trail probably shouldn't be watching body from where he's standing, but he can see the feet because he's further away. He might have a better look at it. But that doesn't mean I don't have to watch it. Did that help with the question?
Yes. Thank you for taking a minute on that. Appreciate it.
Hey, Josh. Years and years ago, there was a individual that came to a rules meeting, and his name was Larry Niemers. I don't know how many of you remember him, but he used to be the Elgin High School principal, and he eventually became a referee in the NFL for football.
Okay.
And when he was going over the rules meeting, I'll never forget this, but he told everybody, he says, there's a lot of plays out there that are going to look unusual. And he said, if it looks strange, call it. It's probably a violation. I'm not saying that's true for everything, but
Dennis, I have heard that. I've heard that before, but you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, I know
Because
that.
in this day and age with video, just because it looks awkward doesn't mean it's a violation. And if you are going to guess that it was because it looked weird, everyone in the gym in that game at that particular time might agree with you. But when they get that video, they're going to say, what do you mean you called it? So that's an old philosophy that we shouldn't abide by anymore. I think that's good to know, because I think guys still say that. If it looks weird, it probably is. Well, probably isn't. It is. It's just probably. So know what you're calling. And if you don't know, don't call it. I'd rather admit to a coach I missed it than I got it wrong. Right?
Yeah.
You got it wrong. They're not going to be happy either way. But if you got it wrong, you penalized their kid. If you missed it, at least played on. That's a good point, actually. I'm glad you brought that up. All right. I want to do some falling down. Okay, we got to travel on the floor. Travel. Official calls it travel. Here it is slow, and I want you to tell me, did he travel or did he not travel?
Travel.
No.
This
travel.
is a tough one.
Travel.
Why do you say, I'm going to start with the travels. Why do you say he traveled?
Looks like his right knee hit the ground as he was falling down.
That is the only answer that I will accept. That is really, really good. You saw that. Because when his body hits the floor, is he holding the ball?
No.
He's trying to dribble still, I think. And the only way you can be called for a traveling violation when something other than a hand or a foot touches is if you are holding the ball. The rule says if you are holding the ball and something touches the floor other than a hand or a foot. If he's not holding the ball, it's not a travel. However, I agree with you. I think he's holding the ball here, and his knee is touching the floor. That is a travel. Very good. I was hoping people would say no travel because he wasn't holding the ball. You're very astute. All right. How about this one? These are fall down and get up ones. All right. Now, I know this one's hard to see because the coach is in the way, but you have to imagine some of what's happening. Do you see what he did? I'm going to play it slow again so you can watch it just a little bit slower close up. And again, I know it's a little What did he do?
He looked like he was on his knees when he got the possession of the ball, and then before he passed it, it looks like he used his foot to come down on the floor. That's what I can't
All
tell.
right, so do you have a and we're doing the best we can with the video that we got. I'm not going to hold anyone to their ability based on a clip like this, but do you have a traveling or no traveling?
I would say traveling.
Okay, one traveling, and did I hear a no traveling? This is what I got. Now, again, it's obscured, right? There's an obstacle in the way. Let's even say he's not on his knees yet. He's kind of fallen on the ball. By raising to his knees, is that an attempt to get up?
Yes.
Oh,
Is he just trying to raise up to throw the ball? If you are laying on your back and you sit up, is that an attempt to get up?
No.
No.
Oh,
oh,
In fact, the casebook specifically addresses that and says if you're laying flat on your back and you sit up, that's legal. So in my opinion, now I don't have anything to back this up. The rules say if you attempt to get up after holding the ball, controlling the ball on the floor, if you attempt to get up, I don't think he attempted to get up. He attempted to sit up in a backwards fashion to pass the ball. So I'm passing on that. Now, if you say that's an attempt to get up, you're in your right to call it a travel. And I think this is a very hard one. I don't have an answer like, look, this is this is that. My point is, the rule says an attempt to get up. Doesn't say anything about anything else. And it doesn't mean you have to get up. It just means you have to attempt to get up. Right? Any questions on that? I know, again, it's not a clear-cut answer, but it's to illustrate my point of the rule.
got it.
Let's go to this one, because this is not in the rule either. It doesn't say, here, I'll play it. No call on the floor. What does he do?
He rolls over.
He jumps in the ball. He's holding it there. And he flips over, right?
Now he's holding it.
Now, the rule, in the rules book, it does not say you're not allowed to flip over. Nowhere can you find that in the rules book. Nowhere. Good luck finding it. And you can look if you'd like. What it says is if you attempt to get up. However, the case book, if you go to the case book, helps to explain further and says, if you flip over, that is a traveling violation. So flipping over is considered an attempt to get up. All right? So don't go home and call me and say, Josh, it doesn't say you can't flip over. No, it doesn't. But the case book covers that. So again, we are going to assume, since the case book says you can't flip over, that flipping over is an attempt to get up. So if I'm on my stomach and I flip to my side and pass it, would you say that's an attempt to get up?
No.
I don't think so. I'm flipping to my side just like I can sit up on my rear and pass. I can flip to my side. How are you going to pass like this? The rule wants to allow them some ability to pass the ball, but they don't want them to flipping over and then sitting up and all that. That gives a huge advantage. Do we agree?
Yes.
All right. So by rule, flipping over, as the case book says, is traveling.
Can you show that again? Just show it one more time.
Yeah. And this was passed on, and I don't know why, but that was a clear flip over.
Yeah.
All right.
So what could he have done to keep that legal? Would he have to stay in his belly and try to get rid of it from there?
He could have, I don't know if this is going to help. He could have, he's on his belly. He could have went to his side and passed it off. So if he's laying on his side, he's not flipping over. He's flipping, but he's flipping to his side. He's moving to his side. Flipping over is from one part all the way to the other part. Now, I'm not saying be so literal and make sure it's a 90-degree, but for the most part, he's got to flip over, which means if he starts on his side and he rolls to his back, that's also legal because he's not flipping over. He's only going a quarter of the way. That's not a flip over, right? So the advantage is more so on your belly to your back, but you're flipping all the way over, and you even saw on that play, then he even sat up. What huge advantage is that, right? Now he's able to sit up, and now he can look around and pass. That's what they're trying to take away the advantage of.
Thank you.
I don't recall what happened before that, but could he have started a dribble too and gotten up, right?
He could have, because what happened?
It's a loose ball.
Well, it looks like the ball maybe got tipped.
Oh,
If the ball didn't get tipped, then his dribble is over.
right.
But if that ball is tipped, even before he touches it a second time to gain control, if that ball was tipped, that ball is no longer in his control because it was tipped by a defensive player. So if he regains it, he could dribble and stand up.
When he was falling, he pushed the ball to the ground. Would that be considered a dribble?
I would say no. You could say that, but that, you'd be pretty hard pressed to say, I'm falling on the ground and you started to dribble, right?
Okay.
I would say he's trying to gain control. He's batting the ball toward himself in order to gain control. All right, I'm sorry. I'm tiring you out. I don't know who that was. All right. Let's try this one. All right. Official call to travel. Did he travel? Was he holding the ball when he fell? I muted everyone, so you have to unmute yourself again if you want to talk.
Good call.
I think he was clearly holding the ball. Especially since he ended up with it in his breadbasket between his stomach and his hand, right? Because he's holding he doesn't want to lose the ball. That's a travel. Now, if the ball came loose, and I'm going to even say if he falls to the ground and the ball comes loose, even kind of after, almost simultaneously, I'm going to say he wasn't holding the ball because it came loose. Kind of like in football, for those of you who are football fans, you catch the ball, you got the ball, you land on the ground, the ball comes loose. Well, that's no catch, right? Because the end result is you didn't have the ball. All right. All right, let's do one of these. We're running near the end of the time. I want to do some of these layups. 1, 2. Here we go. Okay, official calls a travel. I'm going to play it fast again real quick. What did you see? Just the first go around. Travel or legal? Looked like a nice layup, didn't it? Nice, easy layup. But what did he actually do? There's his pivot foot. He's holding the ball. And then he went 1-2 after he's holding the ball. If you are holding the ball and you are touching the floor with a foot, that is your pivot foot. You're not allowed another 2 after that.
I don't know, Josh. Wasn't that his gather? It kind of looked like his gather there, no?
What could be, and I can't tell you based on this clip because it's someone in the way. So let's move on to the next one. Another travel. Boy, this guy's good at getting travels. Would you say he's holding the ball?
Yes.
I think he's holding the ball there. So
Yeah.
I don't know who asked that question about the gather, but that is the question that you need to ask every time. Is he holding the ball or is he starting to gather the ball? And they're two different things. A gather is not a hold. A gather means the dribble has ended, almost always, maybe not always, but the dribble is now ended because it's coming under your hand to rest. But coming to rest in your hand is not holding the ball. It could be holding the ball, but usually holding on a dribble is either with 2 hands or up against something. Not many players can hold with their hand so it doesn't go anywhere. Do we agree?
But the gather is a process, correct? So the process of gathering ends with the ball being held. And you've got to determine when that process ends to establish the pivot foot.
Correct. So a gather is not anywhere in the rules book, not anywhere in the case book. And I'm not saying I don't like talking about it because it's part of the game and it's part of helping us determine what other things happen. But to say, well, the gather is this and the gather is that, well, we have to make determinations and assumptions on what we know of basketball because the gather's not in the rules book. So a gather is when the dribble ends, right? And why is that important to know that the dribble ends?
To know what the pivot foot is.
To know what the pivot foot is, to know whether he's going to shoot the ball, to know whether he can dribble the ball again, right? Lots of things to determine on that. If I start my active shooting, but a gather, again, is not a hold. If it was a hold, it probably would be in the rules book to say, all right, when they gather the ball, now you can't do this. No, it says holding the ball. So we need to determine whether you're holding the ball or not. How about this one? Now this one is a travel or no travel?
Travel.
Travel.
That's a pretty bad travel, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now here's my 2 cents on this. How close is the nearest player to him? 8 feet? 10 feet?
Yeah, at least.
He is uncontested all the way. Now, I'm not trying to say we should allow players to do whatever they want if they're uncontested, but he's going to dunk the ball. I'm going to give a little more allowance as far as a step because he's going to dunk the ball, make a little show. He's shown than if someone was in his way. Did he gain a huge advantage by doing this?
Yes.
I don't think so. Because if he hadn't done it, he would have just laid it up and put it in, right? So the advantage, he didn't get around somebody. Obviously, he got an advantage because he was able to jump higher. He timed his steps. I got that. But he didn't get around somebody. He didn't beat somebody. He didn't, do any of that. So someone told me a long time ago, and I still hold true to this. If a player is all by himself going for a layup, you're going to allow more of a travel go than you would if he was being guarded or someone was nearby. Even if they're behind him and they're nearby, then it might be a bigger advantage. Now, that's not saying don't call a travel ever because he's all by himself. Obviously, if it's a travel, it's a travel. But on this one, in my opinion, I think it was okay to pass him. Anyone disagree? All right.
I wouldn't consider it so much a disagreement as just as a younger official, those kind of nuances get real confusing.
As a newer official, call what you see because you're always going to be better off being backed up by the rule than by a philosophy. Well, I was told he was all by himself. That's not going to help you at all, right? If you're a veteran official, you have a little more clout, then you can maybe get away with that or maybe say nothing at all. But if you think you see a travel and he's all by himself, yeah, call the travel. That's why I'll never tell someone to not call a travel. But if we're going to speak about philosophy, we should then talk about advantage, disadvantage, right? The spirit of the rule is so he doesn't gain an advantage over another player or cause a disadvantage. And I don't think that was here. Does that help? I muted everybody again, so you have to unmute if you want to talk.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Let's do one more. And then before I let you go, state championship game. No call on this. Nice regular legal or regular layup, but was it legal or not? Here he comes in, and he's holding the ball. Do we agree he's holding the ball?
Right.
Yes.
So he picks that pivot foot up because he was holding the ball when that foot was on the ground, and he puts it back down again.
Travel.
That's a regular old layup.
Travel.
And so many guys, including myself, don't pick that up. It's a layup. It's easy, 2 points. And you're never going to catch any grief if you miss one of those. You probably will never hear anything. But that's not the point. We as officials are to know that that's a travel.
Can almost guarantee you'll hear it if you call it, though.
That's true. So now, this Roger Ayers guy who was talking on this podcast I watched, he was mentioning these plays and the spin plays about how almost every time they're travels. Almost every time. And he said, you're better off on plays like these, not get all the really little nuanced travels, get the big ones that everybody sees. My point on this is, if you know that every layup and every spin is probably a travel, start watching for it. So when it is a big one, we got it. Like that, not this, obviously. Okay.
Yeah, I see the spin move similar to the step back shot of the 3-point. I mean, it is so clearly a travel in so many cases. And if we don't call it, then it's going to become an acceptable violation of the rules. I just don't think we can go there.
Yeah, the spin move is much bigger than the layup, because the layup I can see that's a normal action. Everyone kind of does it, and okay, it's part of the game, and no one sees it. The spin move is a huge advantage to be able to spin around somebody and gain that advantage. I'm going to play one more spin move real quick, because you said spin move, step back. This is both. Right? He spins around the guy, so he has a legal position. Oh, that's nice. But then he steps back. Instead of spinning all the way around, he spins and steps back. That's what the step back is primarily either you could say a botched jump stop or a spin move going backwards. All right. Do you guys have anything else you want to see before I show my last clip here? Someone wanted me to show this. Who remembers this game? Anyone remember this game by the visual? The small college game with 0.2 seconds left on the clock and a throw-in. And no one remembers?
I think it was me that wanted me to show you.
Well, I know it was Tim who wanted to see it. So when there is 0.2 seconds left on the clock, what can happen? How can a basket be scored?
Tap in.
Tap only.
Tap only.
Tap only.
This guy's got to get muted again.
All right. Tap only. So if I tap the ball, and what does a tap consist of? It's not catching, right? It's literally, I mean, we don't need to define a tap, right? A tap is when you touch the ball. You simply touch it and push it. That is the only way to score a basket with less than 0.4, right? 0.4 and above, you can catch and shoot. And
0.3, Josh.
No, 0.3.
Yeah, 0.3.
0.3 is a tap only, right? 0.3 is a tap only. 0.4, you are humanly possible to catch and shoot the ball.
Right.
0.3, you are not. 0.2, you are not. 0.1, you are not. So my point is, even in a 0.4 situation, you got to be really good. And so we give a little allowance at the high school level because everyone thinks you can do it. But a catch and a push and a shot, you know, that's not a 0.4 movement. It's literally catch shot. All right, but this one's a 0.2. Let me play it, and you can watch. So first of all, did you see it? Good or no good?
Good.
Looked like a tap to me. Did it not look like a tap?
Yep, score the goal.
They were waving it off.
I'm going to slow it down real quick. They're all waving it off. And then I want to talk about a few things, not just about the tap, but a couple other things. And I know this isn't traveling, so I appreciate you going on a tangent with me. All right, he jumps in the air, taps it with two hands. I mean, that was a textbook tap. Basket is good.
Like a volleyball set.
It's off his hands before the red light on the backboard goes.
Right, because there's going to be a delay from the timer starting the clock to when the ball is touched. And that's why we as officials need to know if you at 0.3 or less, you can't catch and shoot, because technically he's going to catch and shoot that ball before the buzzer or the light goes off, because the human who's operating the clock can't operate that fast. So we need to know that it can or can't happen. Now in this play, what I want to point out is after the tap goes in, okay, here it goes in. Right away, what do we see? Let me pause it. This
All three
official,
officials are waving it off.
this official, and this official are all waving it off. Now, I was told, I'm going to go by what someone said was, At the last break timeout, they all discussed what they were going to allow and not allow, and they were all on the same page. So I give them kudos for that. They were all on the same page. But regardless of all being on the same page, one person signals. It's the responsibility of one person. A college game is no different than high school. One person. And in college, it's the same as high school. It's the official who is opposite the table, whether it's the center or the trail. It is that person. So here's the table right here, closest to us. So this trail should be the only one signaling.
Agreed.
I don't care if you're at the college, the pro, the high school level, or a little kid game. Know who is responsible, because if for some reason this official knows that it should be good and counts it, and this official waves it off or vice versa, now you got a real problem. Yes, these guys were all chastised for not allowing it, but if you've got one person saying it is and one person saying it isn't, now you've got even a bigger mess. Do we agree with that?
Well,
Yes.
yes. And if I'm the coach that just lost that game because of that call, I'm going to accuse all three of them of having a premeditated call.
I agree with that.
I never
Agreed.
thought of that. And that's, you could, yeah. I think that's a stretch as far as being able to justify your actions saying we talked about it. But here's my other thing.
But the fact that that's not their call, and in most games they're not going to call it, but the fact that all three did tells me that they, I'm extrapolating a bit, but it's not a good look.
Well,
Wait,
it tells you
I
that
have
they were all looking at the same thing.
Wait, can't they go to the monitor in that instance?
I don't think they had one at this school. This is a D3 school. I don't think they had that. I think they can in the NCAA Division One level. I think they can.
Division III doesn't have them. That's right.
But from what, again, I'm going by what I was told. This is all hearsay, but the reasoning for them disallowing the basket was he tapped it with two hands. So they said because he tapped it with two hands, you can't allow it. A tap can only be one hand. Now, that is not true. So don't believe that, because a tap can be one or two hands as long as it's a tap. Right? Everyone agree with that? Because
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that kid made a great play.
I thought so too.
now here's the other thing I noticed as I'm watching this. I want you to watch this guy right here. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Yep, the other guy. I want you to watch this guy. It's not even his call. This guy right here, the center.
He goes wild.
The center goes in. He's making sure he sells it to everybody. Then what does he do? He turns around and sells it. And he sells it again. Hey, I get it. You want to sell the call, but you called it. Everybody saw it already. Everyone already doesn't agree with you. You showing the no good sign more and more times is not going to gain you more credibility.
Especially when it's not your call.
Right. So my point of that play is, one, know your responsibility. In the last second shot, it's not necessarily primary coverage area, right? Because the last second shot always belongs to the opposite table. Know your responsibility. If you are being asked for help, great. That's wonderful that you have information to give, but don't give information if it's not asked for, if it's not your responsibility, right? That's primary coverage area is huge. And again, I know this isn't specifically PCA, but knowing what you're supposed to do, what you're supposed to watch is important, because if you're not watching what you're supposed to watch, something's getting missed. All right, so before I let you guys go, does anybody want to talk about anything else?
Okay, let's say you're the center on that play, and you have a scored basket.
You're
Obviously,
the center, but you're table side?
No, it's the trail's call.
Okay.
Because he's opposite table.
Right.
Let's say I'm the center on that play, and I know that ball's good. I want to go to my partner. Obviously I still want to go to my partner after the basket's scored or not scored, and tell him what I have and see if he wants to listen.
Okay,
see
so
if he
you're
wants
saying
to listen to what I saw.
Yep, you're saying that the trail disallows the basket, and
Right.
you saw it different. You thought it should be good.
Yes, you're 100% sure.
You do not signal a good basket.
Right? Correct.
You go to your
Correct.
partner. You may want to blow your whistle, although the whistle's already been blown. You go to your partner and you give him your information.
Right.
And unfortunately, if your partner says absolutely not, it was no good, then that's what you go with. You can't sit there on the court, have a discussion, and argue with your partner about whether it's good or not good. All you can do is give positive information. If you want to bring in the third official, if he doesn't agree, and say, well, let's ask him, I think that's good too. Make sure you get it right, or you have a consensus of officials. I think one of the points of this clip was, what if you've got a young guy who's 100% sure that it was good, and two veterans who say it wasn't good? There's not much you can do to convince those veterans that I'm, as a rookie or whatnot, that you're wrong and we're going to get it right. But you still have to voice your opinion and say, this is good.
Yeah.
Right?
You want to say, Josh?
Yeah.
So before you make that final decision, if you've got the call and you're going to say, well, I think it was good, let me just double check with my partner and see what they saw, if I saw the same thing before you do that. Correct?
If you're not sure, then yes, ask. But if you've signaled, then you're sure.
Yeah.
So don't signal if you're not sure and then say, okay, hold on. I know I just said it was no good, but I want to go check. Because now you look bad. Right? So you can go tweet and then look to your partners and say, I need help. I need help. I'm not sure. Then you can get together. That looks way better than count it.
Correct.
And then like, okay, let's double check it.
And they see what you, and then it's stronger.
Correct. Yes. And I think that's fine. If you don't give a final signal and you want to double check with your partner because you're not sure, better do that than get it wrong.
Right.
And then you're all over. Then you're all over on a viral video showing how terrible you are.
Especially in a case like that, when you're looking for an interpretation on a tap, I thought that would have been a good time to discuss.
Yeah. So, but again, to my understanding, they all got together before that point and they agreed 2-hand tap, no good, 1-hand tap, good. So there was no need for them to discuss it because they already did. So I get that. I get that. But it was wrong. And from what I heard, they paid dearly for that misinterpretation. So.
Josh, I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
I'm just a little confused now on the whole when he's on the ground. I understand he can't get up when he's on the ground, but I was under the impression that when he rolls, it's a violation. Is that correct? Am I missing something?
If he flips over, and flips over means from this side all the way to that side. So if he rolls a little and passes the ball, that's okay because he's not attempting to get up with a half a roll. He's simply attempting to pass the ball off because it's pinned under him, right?
Okay.
If he flips over, that is to be considered a attempt to get up, and that is a travel.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all I needed. Thanks, man.
All right. I'm going to end this meeting. So unless anyone has anything else pressing, thank you all for coming and putting up with me one more month.
All right. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks,
Josh.
everybody.
Josh.
Good seeing you,
Great
Tim.
job, man.
Take care. Take care.
Stay safe, guys.
All right, God bless.
You
Take
too.
it easy, guys.
All right, nice job, Josh.
Good job.
Great job,
Good
Josh.
job.
Thank you.
Good night.
right.
We'll see you guys soon. And if you want one of these big shirts, let me know. I can make that happen.
Free?
Tim Cullen, I'll send you one, Tim Cullen.
All right. See ya, everybody.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.